Well, let's start with how are you and how's the campaign going?
It's going great. Running against an incumbent, I don't think people thought that I would make the primary, and I did. So I'm really grateful for that, and I'm grateful for all the supporters, and I'm just hitting as many municipalities, going on a listening tour, talking to people, and hearing what the county's done well, what the county hasn't done well, and a lot of issues. I toured Martin Marietta. I'm going to meet with those neighbors later on this week in Indian Head Estate. So just busy, busy, busy.
Definitely. Well, we'll get into some of those issues today, and I appreciate you sitting down with us. We'll start with controversy, actually. One of the more controversial aspects of county commissioner's job involves making land use decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You've done a fair amount of that with Greeley City Council.
Mm-hmm.
What guides you on those decisions?
Well, there's always zoning and planning regulations or charters and things. But as far as the county goes, with land use, I think it comes down to our Weld County Code is very permissive. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a lot of direction as far as the landowner, the developer, the industrial people, where to build, meaning that, is it agricultural or where can urban development occur? I think people want guidance and expectations of where you can build and where you can't now. The paper just did a great piece on spot zoning and use by special review, and shouldn't be a loophole. That's not what it's for. When we compare different codes, El Paso, Douglas County, and you compare different codes across the Weld County, they're a little bit more specific. I know that each county has different needs. For instance, our code might say residential, but then school districts are included in that. So if our code was more specific, our residents, our building communities, they'd have more predictability. So I know the county's gotten much better with governmental partnerships with the municipalities that might be compatible, but like industrial uses with a subset for energy or agricultural usage, I think for a win-win situation is our charter review. We're doing a charter review. So I'm thinking that if we had a third party and guidance from the county commissioners and a lot of public input, maybe a little overhaul of our code.
Definitely. And that kind of answers the next question I was going to ask, which is rezoning versus the USR process. Mm-hmm. I'd like to circle back to that initial question of even going back to your time on city council. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What guides you in making land use decisions?
Well, we have a planning commission, mm-hmm. and we appoint these people. We trust these people. These are people that give of their time, that have an expertise. So you listen to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we have rules and regulations. And so that guides me a lot. But you have to listen to both sides. You have to adhere to the regulations, but you also have to respect the citizens and property rights, and everything's involved with it. But that's why I think our county could benefit from a code relook at it. It's something that people can have a guidance as to where can we build our industry. You can't just put a subdivision here and a subdivision here and think that services have to go to it. There has to be proper planning. So that guides me. That really guides me. You have to be ethical, you have to be honest, and you have to adhere to the rules and regulations, but you also have to listen to the citizens that appointed you.
Speaking of land use, one of the more impactful decisions the Greeley City Council made during your tenure involved the Triple Creek oil and gas drilling project in West Greeley. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe you were the one lone no vote, tell me if I'm wrong, and you've taken some flack for that on the campaign trail here. Could you explain your decision and maybe respond to the criticism that you're anti-oil and gas?
Most definitely. I am not anti-oil and gas. Our county is so blessed to have this resource. Our tax revenue, our school districts, police stations, firehouses, road infrastructure, this revenue is all benefiting our communities, 32 municipalities. Weld County is so blessed to have this resource. But I did vote no on Triple Creek. The reason I voted no, because it was unanimously denied use by our Planning Commission. Why it was? 22 high-profile wells, 1,000, the usage of the roads were not compatible. They weren't strong enough for the heavy truck traffic. The wells were 1,000 feet from people's porches, and that truck traffic, if you listen to some of the residents, it's 50 yards, 50 feet from their back bedrooms. Tanks, high-profile tanks, water tank separators. They even had some health concerns. So when the Planning Commission voted no, and then City Council upturned it, and when they were appealed and reversed that decision, I did vote no. It was just an excessive amount of tanks, and I didn't hear much about mitigation. I know that the operator was concerned a state-of-the-art they wanted to put in, but they couldn't guarantee that because they had to talk to the residents to build those pipes under those easements to provide that. So they weren't sure about that. Even now, I understand that they're done pretty much in that area, but you still have, what, a 53-foot wall? Why is that wall still there? I just really listened to the citizens. I thought there could be a better place for it. I didn't know if there was going to be low-profile tanks. How far could they go back and still drill horizontally versus vertically? So I very rarely want to overturn the Planning Commission. It has to take a lot of thought. But I am not against oil and gas. I think every case needs to be heard, and every variable has to be figured in. Who it impacts, who is going to be, the recipient of that. I had 11 wells right behind my home. No problem whatsoever. We called when there was a little bit excessive traffic going on near the school, near Ames Community College, but no issues there. The noise didn't bother me. I didn't have any problems with that, but some of my neighbors did. And so you have to respect that. We didn't want mitigation. My neighbors decided we wanted to see our mountain view, so they didn't want those berms. Some people want berms. We did want low-profile tanks. It takes someone to ask those tough questions and to listen to everybody. So that's what I want to do. That's why I voted no on Triple Creek. I did talk to the operator, and he seemed to understand. He told me, I know why you voted the way you did. So
the Board of County Commissioners made a similar decision as far as controversy, probably more controversial, and it's got some national attention recently with protests, and that is the extraction site near Bella Romero in East Greeley. Contrary to a lot of people's belief, that was not a city council decision. Have you looked much into that, and where do you stand on Bella Romero?
Well, Bella Romero is in the county, and I know that the school district was planning some exit plans to get out in case there was some type of a disaster. Well, since that was in the county, I did talk to an oil and operator. He wasn't the owner of Extraction, but I did ask them, so since the kids are planning how to get out, evacuation, there's no sidewalks around there. That's not within the city. Wouldn't it be great if the oil operator said, let us build those sidewalks, let's do those sidewalks. That's a great goodwill gesture. So I've been following it. In the paper, what y'all wrote, that Dr. Pilch has been in discussion with the oil operator for 2 years. Now, if that's been going on for 2 years, my opponent was appointed by the Oil and Gas Task Force. I haven't heard anything about this from him. And he's the current chair, which is a rotating position. Ms. Kirkmeyer, Commissioner Kirkmeyer, was quoted in the paper, but I didn't hear anything from my opponent. It is a highly visible issue and dispute. I think even someone tied themselves to that. So people are very concerned. So it needs to be out in the open. You need to be able to discuss this. People are worried about their children in case there's a disaster. So we really have to keep an eye on that. And I think you even mentioned that there's going to be drilling starting soon, minor drilling. The school's out in a couple weeks. I don't understand why we can't just, wait just a little bit longer so that we can ease it in. But, if Dr. Pilch is involved in discussions and the operator, I'd like some transparency. I'd like to delve more into that. But yeah, I have been following that very closely.
Definitely, and so we'll turn into some things that may be a little less controversial.
Thank you.
So, Weld County has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on roads around the county, including, of course, Weld County Road 49. What do you think of those investments to date, and do you see other opportunities for investments by the county?
I do. So you're talking about funding projects and transportation like that. Well, when it comes to that, we have lots of partnerships, CDOT, MPO, Front Range, Upper Front Range, municipalities, and lots of special districts. It's vital for our county, but it goes hand in hand with planning for our future. So when you talk transportation over the county, over 4,000 square miles, I think probably we're talking about not unincorporated, but there's corridor plans, highways, 85, I-25. I think funding is a huge part, and Weld County has a strong history of paving its own way, and no pun intended. But with infrastructure and maintenance, I want to continue that legacy. As far as Weld County continues to prosper economically with the oil and gas revenues, I see no reason why these large projects like 49 can't continue. But we have to keep an eye on our future forecast to make sure that we have the sustainability to continue that. Now, when you talk about 49, I just travel, I love that road going out, that's great. But then you talk about 29, County Road 29. I thought you said you weren't going to be more controversial, but well, 29, my understanding is, as I spoke to those mayors and some of the constituents around 29, when the commissioners first met with them, they thought this was just an idea. And a lot of the municipalities and the constituents thought County Road 31 might be a better fit because that actually connects to Greeley, a larger city. And in the mindset was, well, this is just an idea. Well, now it's coming to fruition, and there's a lot of money earmarked towards that road. If that becomes a 4-lane highway, I understand people will lose their homes. So this is something that I would love to revisit when I'm a commissioner. I know that it's been in discussion for a long time, but as long as there's still questions by municipalities, I think it needs to be discussed. I think it needs to be on the table. And as long as we're talking about a little bit about meetings and land use, if there is a meeting or an issue being discussed that has land use, possible eminent domain, I think those meetings need to be in the evening where more of the public can attend. 10 o'clock in the morning, I can't make those meetings. You're working, I'm working. If this involves losing a home, we have to make sure that everybody that's a stakeholder can attend so we can hear.
You talked a little about partnerships. Weld County has been criticized, fairly or unfairly, as not working well with others. What's your view of that, and are there specific things you do differently when it comes to those partnerships?
Well, each municipality is a partner in the county, all 32 municipalities. And I think it begins with relational excellence. In order to do that, the Board of County Commissioners, first off, need to act as a team. If you can't respect who you work with as a peer, how can you respect who you represent? To fight in public, name call, openly say, I don't trust him, or post pictures on Facebook, innocent pictures of someone running for office talking to a commissioner, backbiting, shouting, it just, how would you tolerate that with your children? You wouldn't. So the partnerships that we have, CDOT, MPO, Upper Front Range, the municipalities, each deserve respect. They're partners, Weld County Prevention Partners, Energy Assistance, Workforce Center partner agencies. Any partner that works to serve our citizens and work for the betterment of our county deserves to be listened to, respected, and any assistance we can give. Even if it's just a resolution saying that we support this partnership. Business partnerships, regional partnerships, anything to do with transparency, it's a no-brainer. If you don't know your county commissioner in your municipality, then you might think about voting somebody else in. I think I could help that, I really do, by treating each other with respect. It's all about achieving excellence in your county. We're better than what we're getting right now. one time they did work as a team, and now they're not. But if you can't respect each other, you're not going to respect the people you work for. So that's something each partnership needs to be respected.
And that was kind of my next question, is that, Weld County Commissioner infighting has been a fact of life for this Board of Weld County Commissioners for at least 3 years. What's the root cause, and how would it be different if you were elected?
Well, first off, you're right. How many times has a citizen opened your paper and has read something discord or discontent or something surrounding the commissioners negative? It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't always like this. There was a time when they worked as a team. Somehow it ended up divided, and they're not working in unison. They're not doing the will of the people who elected them. Mainly elected them to lead. So there's not only distrust among themselves, but the people that elected them are dissatisfied with this behavior, that they're distrustful, that they're not getting along. So how can we change that? How can I change that? I'm a mindset, if you get new people elected in there, that's me. I want to make a difference. My opponent was elected as chair of the Board of County Commissioners for his 4th and final year, as is standard practice to rotate the county commissioners. So I guess that's what's disappointing to me. As a chairman, I expect something more out of the person chosen to lead. He hasn't taken control. These schoolhouse antics, fighting on the playground or in the sandbox, as I've heard. You're right, this has plagued the board for the last 3 years, behavior that just can't be tolerated. If a commissioner begins to yell or shout in a meeting or name call, what would you do to your children? I wouldn't tolerate it. Any bully behavior, if you can't, I would guess I'd come straight out. If you can't control your emotions during this meeting, to treat your peers with respect, as a leader, I would ask you, please get your emotions under control. If you can't do that, I'm going to ask to table this meeting until you can. Disagreement and discourse on a board is expected. We want that. That's democracy in work. But the lack of respect, the childish behavior, the disruption, the deflection on any issue that's at hand, that's what people are tired of. And that's why I have a chance of winning this race.
Weld County, like many government entities, uses tax dollars to pay for lobbyists to lobby our legislators. Do you agree with the practice? And if so, what should guide commissioners' decisions when it comes to spending taxpayer dollars on lobbying, deciding what to lobby for and lobby against?
Well, similarly, when I was on city council, we enlisted the Colorado Municipal League. We have to stay informed with the legislation that could impact our county and our residents. For example, like Senator Cook's new bill on how to change how the county reports to the public. Additionally, regulations on oil and gas industry that could coincide with our planning, and it might in fact impact our revenue stream. So mandates on well capping, transportation dollars that might get rerouted. There's so many examples why Weld County actively lobbies at the state level, and I understand that. I'm going to open a can of worms, but what's good for Boulder is almost never good for Weld County, and we have to have a skin in the game. As far as deciding what to lobby for, well, if it's going to impact our citizens, if it's going to impact our revenue stream, if it's going to cut off all well production, there we need to know. We need to know what's happening. So I guess those issues that are very impactful to our citizens and our tax base, our revenue source, that's what I would concentrate on.
Definitely. First launched in the fall of 2015, the Weld County Bright Futures Scholarship Program was billed as a way to give every Weld County High School graduate, GED recipient, or honorably discharged military veteran a chance at college education. In the past 3 years, the program hasn't been able to keep pace with the costs, and the county has had to infuse more cash into the program as donations lag. Is it time to fully dedicate county money to this program instead of continuing to hope donations will fully fund it?
Well, Bright Futures, okay, it's an excellent program. You had a great explanation. I think partnerships, for one, is what the county had relied on, partnering with municipalities and existing programs that people that might get involved. Now, you're right, Bright Futures was designed to strengthen the vitality of Weld County community through its workforce, building that foundation that's needed. You mentioned that. But this program was designed to financially assist students to pursue that secondary education. The part that I don't think was fully thought of was the sustainability before it was fully launched. So a couple of ideas that I have. If we're partnering with the private sector and allowing our applicants to go anywhere in any surrounding states, why not keep that in our county? I mean, there's 32 municipalities that have community colleges, trade schools. All I'm saying is that if we did this to increase our workforce, then why not keep it in Weld County, increase Weld County's workforce? Sustainability is the key, so how can we keep this going, like you asked, without increasing our taxes? I think partnering with municipality programs, like Greeley's ACE program, I'm sure other communities that have programs that are centered on education. Additionally, this is what I think, instead of infusing more tax dollars in this program, front-loading the monetary reward was too aggressive an idea for the county to begin with not having that sustainability. There's so many financial other options out there for a student, competitively and need-based. So making Bright Futures Scholarship maybe a last dollar scholarship would ensure that students that needed that full $3,000 to get started, make sure other options are utilized first. You know, FAFSA, any scholarships that might come through, and then say, I need money to make it meet, then let's go to Bright Futures. But to, just to openly give that, award that money and not have a sustainable fee, knowing that people may have to put in their tax dollars. Not everybody's in on that. I think that might require a vote of the people. It's your money. So that's where I'm at on Bright Futures.
Cool. And then last question. Gilchrist area farmers and residents have suffered for years the effects of decreased well pumping, with rising water levels destroying crops and inundating residents' basements. Costs have soared into the millions. Weld County Public Works did help with ditch clearing a few years ago. Should the county do more?
Well, I'm not privy to all the conversations and everything that's happened with the Gilchrist area. I do know that for years, citizens are having their basements flooded and having to purchase 2 sump pumps to get the water out. I think, like I said, I'm not real privy to everything. I'd like to. When I'm a commissioner, that's one of the first things that I'm going to address, because I do think that this has to be investigated. As far as legislation, I know farmers are kind of tied with how much water they can pump out, but with these rising water levels, something has to be done for our citizens' homes. If this is at risk, yeah, definitely. I think the county needs to get involved and see what's going on. How can we assist these homeowners that live in our county? They're the ones we represent. They're who elected us in here. So they have an issue, they bring it to the county, we have to at least look at it. And I don't know if it has to do with legislation or why our farmers or hands are tied or money being pumped into this water issue, but that is something that I need to get more well versed on. I'm not going to try to give you all specifics, but I do think it needs to be looked at. There are citizens in need.
So I said last question, so this one isn't a question, but just an opportunity. Is there anything you'd like to add or you'd like voters to know about you?
Well, I have the heart. I'm a public servant. So I want to delve a little bit on my record, because you might have mentioned, at the General Assembly, my opponent said, look at our records. Just look at our voting records. And well, first off, I want to start with my attendance. So I served citizen for many years prior to being elected to city council. I was on several boards and commissions. So I want to look at my attendance. I missed approximately 10 to 12 meetings in my 8 years of service. And I want to mention that I was the chair of the Greeley Weld Airport Board, the chair Latino Advisory to Greeley's Police Chief, Jobs of Hope board member, ACE board member. I served on a voluntary board for Congressman Ken Buck, as far as the Latino and Hispanic community, a Lilly board member, initiative board that studied infant death rates in Weld County, public safety oversight, and a myriad of other things. During that 8 years, I went on dialysis. During that 8 years, I received a kidney transplant and a total ankle revision, and I only missed 12 meetings. So that's part of my record. So then you want to look at my service, look at my voting record. I studied and listened to many recommendations, and I weighed the issue, and I voted very intelligently. My opponent was telling delegates at the county assembly that I was against oil and gas, and that's not so. My vote on Triple Creek is what I think he's zeroing in on. I told you that. 22 high-profile well project within neighborhoods, unanimously rejected by our planning commission, and on that basis, the council overturned it. I voted to uphold that. My vote was not against oil and gas on that. My vote was for the people that I represented. And if you want someone that'll blanket vote on every issue, I'm not your candidate. I'm going to weigh the issue, I'm going to see who it impacts, and I'm going to vote the way you want me to vote, and I'm going to vote intelligently and vote my heart. So this is something that also came up while running. So there's a little whisper campaign that I'm a very, very liberal. Well, so in my 8 years, a fellow council member, Mr. Finn, who's also running for a commissioner position in District 2, he and I voted nearly identical on every single issue. Now, I don't understand how that record for me is considered borderline liberal, but for Mr. Finn, it makes him a fiscal conservative. So my record is my record, and I own it. I hope that you give me the opportunity to serve you for Weld County Commissioner at Large. So if you want to look at my website, sandy4weld.com. Tyler, Mr. Sylvia, I want to thank you for the opportunity in the Greeley Tribune for this interview.
Thank you.